3% is the new Netflix original series with the most diverse cast we've seen yet. But this is beyond political pander and attempt to gather minority approval. See, its strategically visual storytelling tailors a premise of a society that is ruled by a meritocracy splitting their dystopian slums from an unseen utopia. I've been finding myself in this kind of weird, awkward misunderstanding whenever I tell people about this series. Yo, you seen 3% yet? Yo, you gotta see 3% on Netflix. Considering it's a number and a symbol for a title, it's pretty unorthodox. But the title refers to a select few people in a dystopian society that actually pass a test called Il Processo, or the process, and make it to a promise to be perfect society called the offshore. The only supposed way to pass this test, however, is by your own merit. Meaning, just passing the test doesn't mean your family members can join you. Any hereditary influence on the utopian society would mean aristocratic power. Power in the way a king passes an unearned social status to his son. This society's major belief is that the only justified hierarchy is between the state that administers a test and the unproven humans. And those placed in state power have been those that passed the process and are elected by oligarchs who also passed. Only those with merit even get a shot at being elected to power. There is no middle ground. You can't get a 65, you can't get an A+, a B+, a C+. You either pass or you fail. You either have merit or you don't. Each person is tested both on their own individual capabilities and their abilities to problem solve in groups. A post-apocalyptic setting is suggested as the area around them looks barren, yet the technology around them proves very far ahead of time. The fact that the cast is so genetically diverse, yet race, cultural differences, nor pride in past nationhood is even remotely mentioned, might mean that the audience is looking at a post-racial society. A society where people are judged not by the color of their skin, as MLK Jr. said, but by the content of their character. Their capabilities are proven only by their actions and nothing else. No ancestry, no racial history, no cultural backgrounds, no family lineage, and definitely not looks. Suggesting this visually could be some of the most genius writing because it works on the subconscious of the audience. See, if too many people looked black or looked white or any particular culture, the audience would have subconsciously had their own biases as to the culture of the civilization based on their knowledge of culture as we know it. See, the writers of 3% didn't want this to feel culturally relatable nor familiar at all. They want it to feel new and fresh. In having such a genetically diverse cast, 3% feels ethnically ambiguous enough to feel like a struggle of human ability and not a struggle of arbitrary social classes like race or inheritance. This makes sure that while you might enjoy that melanin, what's most important to the story is the idea that everyone is born equally worthless until they prove otherwise through their capabilities. If anything, this brings about ableist undertones, hinted right at the beginning with a woman that appears to be mentally ill. It makes you wonder if her experience at Il Processo made her lose her mind due to her experiences, or if her mental illness was what hindered her from passing in the first place. This brings about a philosophical question throughout. Does a person's experiences determine their intellectual capability, or does their intellectual capability determine the experiences they create for themselves? Realism versus idealism. Truly a question of the chicken and the egg. Even the personalities of each individual are very diverse. The chaotic good, the dictatorial ESTJ to the introverted individualist that just goes with the flow. My favorite character, by the way, definitely INTP. You'll never see two characters that are just alike. But although these characters have a focused temperament and some even change their motives, they are still multi-dimensionally balanced so that they aren't too predictable, and yet nothing they do seems outlandish or forced whenever there's a twist. They each occupy their own space with their own merit. There goes that individualism again. And whenever they overstep each other's boundaries, that is where the true conflict lies. Clashing personalities and ever-changing power dynamics with each part that goes by throughout Il Processo. You would think that all of them at the end would be very similar, but even then, the 3% are all very different in personality, showing that there is no inherited personality that is truly guaranteed to pass. All types of people have a chance. And one of the last determining factors of whether or not they'll make it is almost completely their choice and free will. Of course, nothing is really free will when there's a price. Each have mérito in different ways, further strengthening the concept of power of individualism within a group of people. I mean, the title starts to make more sense now. 5 different people from 5 different languages can read this, all in 5 different ways. Numbers and symbols are universal, leaving no room for semantic discourse compared to if they just decided to simply name the title Mérito. Now I want to go more in depth on how political this thing gets, but not enough people have watched this for me to just be throwing spoilers around. There's barely any talk about this amazing series. So I'm gonna give y'all a week or two to watch the whole thing, and I'll come up with a follow-up analysis video. Not gonna lie, the English dub is kind of weird. Everyone sounds like they're tired. You can really feel the emotion through the Portuguese, but then again, I'm biased. I speak Spanish, so I understand Portuguese pretty well. This is Almonte bringing y'all that sophisticated Netflix and chill material. Check out my Patreon to support below. Beside Harlem Reppin'.